One of the questions I'm most frequently asked in the comments is, do I grow things other than Hoyas? And of course I do. And I thought today might be a good day to take a look at some of those other plants. So join me with a tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we take a look at some of the other stuff. And before we get started, I'm happy to take this opportunity to send out a special thanks to Charitas4347, who sent me a super thanks recently. Your support for my channel goes a long way in helping keep me in Hoyas, Dischidias, other stuff, technology and infrastructure. So I thank you very, very much for your support. And we've got a couple things in bloom this week. Sadly, the first one, the blooms are all done and they don't look like much right now, but this is my Hoya clemenciorum, and it did bloom for the first time. The markings on the buds and petioles are just incredible, and I'll have close-ups of this over here on the side. I kept an eye on this for weeks, because the peduncle had set and it was looking great, and I think it got bumped because it was originally upright, but it did bloom. With luck, it'll send out another peduncle. The leaves are just gorgeous on this plant, and it's been growing. So yeah, too bad, but it was very, very cool, and a first-time bloom is always great. The next one, let me set this down, who's blooming again right now is my Hoya David Kamingi. And I know the leaves aren't much, and there's probably a variegated version of it, but the blooms are really, really special. And I'm gonna hopefully get a good shot of that. Keeps trying to focus on me, and to me, the scent, the smell, the scent of the blooms is like dark caramel. Who's that? Somebody else is going to be blooming tomorrow. Dark caramel, and in the evenings, it gets really strong, and I don't mind it at all. It's like someone's making candy in the house. It's a good grower. Steady grower. There's another peduncle down here waiting to open up. It's nothing fancy. The leaves are fairly firm. They have a slightly dark margin. It's just done really well for me. As long as I keep up, as with everything else in here, as long as I keep up with the watering, this is a good one, and I love the smell of those blooms. You'll smell the blooms before you see them in many cases. You'll get that whiff, and it's like, that's David Kamingi in bloom. So that's very cool. And the other one that's in bloom, I've started replacing some orchids. Some of you know the story of orchids and mealybugs, and I'd never had a mealybug on my orchid in over 20 years. And then I bought some from a seller who shall remain nameless, and they were infested, but they didn't show up until 2 weeks after the orchids did. So I'm replacing step by step, and I have a new Oncidium, and it is just beautiful. Now, it was blooming when I bought it, so I can't take credit for the blooms, but I saw those blooms, and I thought, yeah, this one's coming home with me, because it's such a neat look. So yeah, step by step, we're going to bring the orchid collection back. And yeah, so that's who's in bloom this week. And the first one of the other stuff is my Chamedorea elegans. Now, Chamedorea elegans is native to Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, most of Mexico. And it was first published in 1830 in Linnea, ein Journal for the Botanik in Ihrem Gesang. I'm going to try this again because I'd like to give it a shot. Linnea, ein Journal für die Botanik in ihrem ganzen Umfang by Carl Friedrich Philipp von Martius. And this is what is commonly known as a parlor palm. And mine has turned into a very fun little monster. It lives in the living room, the parlor, and it's done very, very well. I used to think that when it was a palm, it wanted to be dry, like desert palms. Well, the thing that everybody forgets or frequently forgets about desert palms is that they only grow where there's water. They only grow at an oasis. So palms don't really like to dry out. So once I got that into my thick skull, then we started getting along very, very well. It's not a rampant grower, but it is a good grower. And it provides a nice little statement piece in the living room. It doesn't want direct sun. It's kind of an understory plant. So it sits maybe 6 feet or, let's see, so that's 1.5 meters, maybe 2 meters, maybe 2.5 meters away from west-facing windows. So it gets a lot of the ultimate bright indirect light. And as long as I keep up with the watering, it does very, very well. And if you're, people used to use the phrase, that jungle vibe. If you're looking for that jungle vibe, that's it. Now, you can usually find these in big box stores. They shouldn't be terribly expensive. They may only be little 6-inch plants when you find them. Just treat them right. They like well-draining soil, bright and direct light, regular watering. This one I've noticed, I don't know if I can hold it up, but there's an inflorescence forming down in here. I'll try and put some close-ups of it. Here we go. But yeah, this is just a great plant. It just does its thing. We get along really well. If I get behind on the watering, you'll notice that we'll occasionally get some dried leaves or burned tips. But other than that, it just keeps chugging right along. So this is a really cool plant. Highly recommend it because it's usually not expensive and it puts up with a lot. And it will do well in conditions that most of us have in our homes. It doesn't need to be under a grow light. It probably doesn't want to be under a grow light. So if you've got some place where it's bright, but it's not getting sun, this could be kind of fun. This one came from a big box store, and this is Chamaedorea elegans. I should have probably mentioned on that Chamaedorea that I have that growing in plastic and not terracotta for the simple reason that way the soil dries out more slowly. So that might be something to consider with that one. Now the next up is not so much a specific plant, but a genus. And the genus I'm going to talk about is Aglaonema. Now, Aglaonema is native to Bangladesh, Bhutan, Brunei, Cambodia, South Central and Southeast China, Assam and the Nicobar Islands in India, to Java, Kalimantan, the Lesser Sunda Islands, Maluku, New Guinea, Sulawesi, and Sumatra in Indonesia, to Malaya, Sabah, and Sarawak in Malaysia, to Myanmar, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. And it was first published in 1829 in Wiener Zeitschrift für Kunst, Literatur, Theater und Mode by Heinrich Wilhelm Schott. And I love Aglaonema. This is Aglaonema calcite. My experience with Aglaonema is, that's not going to work, is that they want low light, no direct sun. So if you've got some place that doesn't get direct sun, that's a little shaded, somewhat out of the way, someplace where you would consider putting a spathiphyllum, then an Aglaonema is going to be very happy there. Mine are planted in a few locations throughout the house. This one is growing about 2 meters, 6 feet, maybe 7 feet from a west-facing window. And you can see it's leaning toward the window, but it's producing that gorgeous foliage. And I have Aglaonema Maria, who is doing well. I think that's Maria. Maybe that's Saber. One of those two. They're both, I have them both. I don't remember, I don't have a tag in that. And this is Aglaonema Cloudy Bay. Now, Aglaonema, for me, I give them a good thorough watering and then don't touch them again for about 2 weeks, no matter the size of the plant. So they don't want to be overwatered. That's, if you're an overwaterer, then you're going to have to make yourself behave. If you're an underwaterer, then these may be just the plants for you. Now, the ones I've shown are shades of green and variegation, but there are lots of colors of Aglaonema. If you like pink plants or red plants, there's a lot of Aglaonema that fit that bill, that description. You can usually find them in a big box store, or it's a kind of plant that a plant shop will have inventory of. They'll have some hanging around. They shouldn't be too terribly expensive. They are very easy. I mean, they are just very easy to grow. And with watering every other week, we get along really fine. There's not much of a learning curve. They're fairly tolerant of my neglectfulness. They do bounce right back. They just keep adding more to their stems and growing taller. And some people may look at this and say, well, yeah, Dieffenbachia, but I don't get along with Dieffenbachia. Haven't had any good luck with them. But my Ags, absolutely. So if you're looking for something that can handle a little bit lower light, that can put up with maybe being forgotten for a week, that will add a splash of color or brightness to a corner of your home, then absolutely. I've got them all in a well-draining mix, so it's some potting soil, pumice, bark. I think that's all that's in there. Maybe some cocoa coir. If you're a really bad underwater, then maybe put a little bit more cocoa coir in to retain some moisture. But, you know, I've got like chunks of pumice like that in there, and they're doing really well. They love the porch in the summer. So, yeah, this has become just a favorite. As I said, the calcite and the silver bay, I found in a big box store. This one, I think I found at a specialty plant shop, if I remember. But yeah, the other ones I really love are Aglaonemas. So yeah, keep an eye out for them. Next one is my Aspidistra elatior Domino. Now this is native to Japan and was first published in 1934 in Tijdschrift voor Natuurlijke Dutch. Tijdschrift voor Natuurlijke Geschiedenis aan Physiologie by Carl Ludwig von Blume. And I had wanted this plant for a really long time. The leaves are very cool. This has spots like a domino, hence the name. And it's just an elegant little plant, I think. Now, this one just got repotted yesterday because he had outgrown and the pot he was in was not supporting the plant that he was becoming. Now, this is also often known as cast iron plant. And the story I was told was that in the Victorian age, when plants were starting to come back to England and to Europe, that lots of people wanted them in their homes. Why not? We do today. But that the kerosene lights and oil lights and gas lights in some of the homes produced fumes that killed off most other houseplants, but not Aspidistra. So that's why it became known as cast iron plant, because it will put up with a lot. It's a tough plant. I'm just really happy about that. I'm looking now for a variegated one. I saw one on Kaylee Ellen's channel. If you think people don't add to my wish list, I saw a variegated one on Kaylee Ellen's channel. I thought, I need one of those. It will like moderate light. It's similar conditions to the Parlor Palm. So I have it in a mix that's cocoa peat, cocoa husk chunks, pumice. There's little bits of sphagnum in there. Even some leca. That's probably how I help get rid of it. But it just grows really well. It's a pretty plant. It's not a rampant grower, but if you do all the right stuff, it will be a steady grower for you. And it will turn into a rather, large, full plant. So yeah, there's lots of varieties of Aspidistra. Look around. They're often pricey because they can be something of a slow grower. And often they'll be sold with just in little clumps of, I believe it's a rhizome. And the leaves come up from that rhizome. But it's cool. I like this. It's done well for me. So I'm hoping that continues, because I think a big plant of this would be really, really pretty. This one came from Jordan's Jungle in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and this is Aspidistra elatior Domino. Next up is my Cronelinia grusonii. Now, you may know this as Echinocactus grusonii, but it's been reclassified. So, yeah. Now, this is native to northeastern Mexico, and it was first published in 2014 in International Cactus Adventures by H. Hildman. And I was afraid that I was going to kill this one. I do not have the best of luck with some succulents. And I almost was concerned that I was just like throwing money away. But I went ahead and ordered it, and I didn't know how it was going to ship. I mean, when you've got like gorgeous spines like that, how do they ship that? Well, they actually it came in a clamshell. So there was a part that clamped around the pot, and then there was a big round plastic dome that protected the spines. It shipped beautifully with almost no damage whatsoever. This one has been a tad bit more full in the past, but it got off its watering cycle. I got off its watering cycle. So it used up its reserves of moisture. So we're building back up again. It has just been so much fun. As I said, I haven't had the best of luck with succulents and very bad luck with cacti, but this one hasn't been difficult. I've been, really kind of pleased with it. Plus, it's just cool. I mean, it's absolutely just cool. No two ways about that. So yeah, if you're If you're thinking about a foray into the cacti world, I like this one. He made an appearance in one of my really early videos. It was like 5 Hoya lies or 5 truths that aren't true, something like that. I'll put a link to that video up here and you can see him in his early days. But it's been really good. You can often find these in a big box store. So look there. This one came from Gabriella Plants at their website. I've been really happy with it. I think it's so cool. It's just a neat little cacti. It lives in a southwest facing window, so it gets a decent amount of sun. It's just cool. It's just cool. I can't say anything more than that. As I said, this is Crolinia grusonii from Gabriella Plants. My next one up is Gasteria Little Warty. Now this is a hybrid by David Cumming in Australia. And I'm guessing, remember earlier, David Cumming, so that may have been named after him. But it's a cross between Gasteria batesiana and Gasteria Old Man Silver. And we know it was available in the late 2010s. It was on the market. So that's about all I've been able to find out so far. It's a very, very interesting plant. And I know I said that I don't always have the best of luck with succulents, but not this one. This is just, it's got gorgeous markings on that. The leaves have little raised bumps, hence the name Little Warty. And it has just grown really, really well for me. As it gets bigger, these leaves start getting longer and longer. They just get more and more interesting. It's very cool. I have it growing in terracotta in a mix that looks like pumice and cocoa husk chunks. And there's probably some other stuff in there as well. Probably some cocoa peat, maybe even some actual soil. It lives in a southwest facing window and is exceptionally tolerant. When I found, and I have 2 of them, because when I saw the second one, I couldn't pass it by. They were tiny little, maybe 2-inch pots. And 2 inches is 5 centimeter square pots in a big box store. And I had seen them online and people had talked about them. And I thought, well, that's kind of neat, but Little Warty, that's kind of a strange name. And then I saw them in person in the big box store. And a lot of the succulents in the big box store, the companies that sell them stock the shelves and then they don't deal with them again ever. Like they don't ever get watered. So the little plant looked like green shoe leather. It was awful. But I knew what it was and I thought I could save it. And I did. So I brought it home. The advantage to finding them in the big box stores is I think at the time I paid, now it wasn't this big. It was a tiny little thing. I don't know if any, leaves no bigger than that. I think I paid $4 for it. And about the same for the other one I got. And they're both doing really well. But for a $4 plant to get that, and I've had this now maybe 4 or 5 years. And if I took even better care of it, it would probably be larger. But this is one of my favorite other plants, simply because it's done so well for me. No grief, no drama, no trauma. If I forget it for a couple of weeks, it doesn't seem to mind. If you forget it too long, now it's going to turn back into shoe leather. But if you forget it for a couple of weeks, it'll be fine. When you give it a drink, it'll be grateful and happy and all will be well. So the leaves are In the newer leaves, there's some flexibility, but not much. The older leaves get rigid. You know, it's just so pretty. And I should have all kinds of pictures and videos and stills of it over here because I like this one a lot. It has bloomed for me. It sends out a very, very long bloom spike with some tiny little flowers on the end, trumpet-shaped flowers. Nothing to rave about, but it's neat that your plant bloomed for you. So yeah, keep an eye out for these if you're into succulents or want something a little different. This is Gasteria Little Warty, and you can find these in a big box store. The next other one up is Syningia leucotricha. Now, Syningia leucotricha is native to Brazil, to the states of Paraná, Catarina, and Rio Grande do Sul. It was first published in 1973 in Barrell, a quarterly journal of horticultural taxonomy by Friedrich Carlos Hoya. This is a really interesting plant. And I found it through one of the places where I buy my lithops. And I looked at it and I thought, I've never seen anything like that before. I need to get me one of those. So I did. I may have pictures of what it looked like when it arrived, but I do have pictures of what it looked like when it bloomed. And it has long orange trumpet-shaped blossoms that are very, very cool. I need to up pot this one. You can see it grows from like a tuber down there in the base, the potato. And I settled it in essentially pure pon. And it has done well. So I think what I'm going to do in a few weeks is, oh yeah, the roots found the bottom. So I'm going to tap it out of this gently, because I don't want anything to happen to it, and transfer it to a larger pot, maybe half again as large. The leaves are fuzzy, not, you know how Hoya leaves, fuzzy Hoya leaves can be a little bristly because the hairs like stand up. This is, it like forms a grain. It's very, very soft. They are pubescent on both sides. Very interesting looking. I think this will do much better if I get it to a larger pot, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what it needed and wanted. So I'm going to probably do a mix that's akadama, which is a Japanese clay pebble, and some of this generic pon, and I'm going to put in maybe some tree fern fiber. This might be a good spot for some of that. So it gets a little bit more moisture at its disposal, but this has been very cool. If I remember correctly, this one was not expensive at all. It has done well, and I'm just happy with the whole thing. It's been a neat little experiment. So another fun, different thing. This one came from It's Secret Succulents on their website, and this is Syningia leucotricha. And I know I said I didn't always have success with succulents, but there are a few that have done well for me. And this is my Haworthiopsis fasciata. Now, Haworthiopsis is native to the Cape provinces in South Africa, and it was first published in 2013 in Haworthiopsis International, the succulent Asphodactyliae. Probably didn't pronounce that correctly, but I'm going to carry on. the Asphodelicae, that's a better journal. It was originally published by Carl Ludwig Wildenau, but republished by Gordon Douglas Rowley. This one, this little beauty, came from a lady I worked with. She knew that I had plants and liked them, and she came up to me with this one day, tiny little thing, like that big, and said, "It's a succulent. I don't like succulents. Would you like it?" And being one to never turn down a free plant, with a couple of exceptions, but so I said, yeah. And I brought it home and settled it in where it got some nice sun in the morning. And I thought, okay, I'm going to find out what it is. This is the plant that made me learn scientific names. So I started going through, I knew it was a succulent, so that narrowed it down. And I started going through pictures of succulents until I found this. And I thought, okay, well, that's what I've got. And it was, plant name. But it said also known as zebra plant. And I went, okay, so I don't have to learn those scientific names. It's a zebra plant. So in a couple of weeks, I decided it was time to do something with it, to transplant it into a pot. So I wanted to look up what kind of soil it liked, what kind of light it liked, all those kind of details. So I typed in zebra plant and boom, there were like 100 different plants known as zebra plants. So I went back through that list again, looking at the pictures of all of them until I found this. And I thought, if I had just written down the scientific name, I could have found all the information about it just like that, without having to look through 100 pictures to identify it. So that's what made me start learning plant scientific names. I'm really glad I did. This has just grown so well for me for that tiny little plant that no one wanted. Again, I've got it in a mix that's cocoa peat and pumice and some cocoa husk chunks in there. So it drains really well. It has put out a little pup down there on the side, in there. It lives in a southeast facing window. And as long as I water it regularly, it does great. There are other varieties of Haworthiopsis that are definitely worth checking out. They are very tolerant, very forgiving. I have gone at sometimes 3 weeks without remembering to water this, and it just rolls with it. I have a feeling it stores a lot of moisture in its leaves, which they're just beautiful. They're just beautiful in there. Those little stripes running around the side are very cool. They're slightly raised. So it stores a decent amount of moisture in its leaves, and it will live off that when you are neglectful. This one, the leaves are absolutely rigid. They're prickly. Keep this away from small children, and, well, the cat will figure it out. The cat and the dog will figure out after one time that they don't want to be near that. These have a little bit more flexibility, but not much. Big box store, okay? Big box store. At the time I got them, well, this one was a freebie. This one, again, was probably like $4 or $5 US at the time. So go through the shelves. If you like this kind of stuff, go through the shelves on the big box store, all those little 2-inch, 5-centimeter pots, and look for something that appeals to you, because they can be very rewarding to grow and so much fun. These both came from, I'm guessing, from a big box store. And this is Haworthiopsis fasciata. My next other plant is Dracaena circulosa. Now, Dracaena circulosa is native to Benin, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Congo, Gabon, Ghana, Guinea, the Gulf of Guinea Islands, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Togo. and it was first published in 1828 in Botanical Register, consisting of colored figures of exotic plants cultivated in British gardens with their history and mode of treatment, by John Lindley. And I got one of these years ago when my father passed away. It was I was sent a condolence planter by one of my vendors. And I appreciated that very much. And I'd never seen that before. And I really didn't know how to take care of it or anything about it. When I identified it by pictures on the web, it was identified as Japanese bamboo Florida beauty. Well, it's not from Japan, and it's not bamboo. It's a Dracaena. It is a beauty. So my first one did not survive because I did not know what I was dealing with. Japanese bamboo, wrong care, complete wrong care. So I found another one, and I've just been enjoying it. Those leaves are so cool. They have this nice arching growth pattern. I will always have one of these. I know it's nothing fancy or nothing rare, difficult. This is big box store material. But I just love it. The look, it's dumping soil everywhere. I just love the look of it. It's growing in a cocoa coir mix, maybe a little bit of potting soil in there, some pumice, and apparently cocoa husk chunks, because that's what that is. So a fairly well-draining soil. Whatever your other Dracaena if you have any, this will appreciate as well. It's currently living, well, it's in my living room. So there's a north-facing window on this side of it and a couple west-facing windows, but they're probably 2.5 to 3 meters away. So it gets very gentle light. It likes a regular watering, but it's well-draining soil. So you water it once a week, but it needs well-draining soil. It doesn't want to sit in it and rot. And you get that. I mean, I think that's really pretty. These should not be expensive. I have to vacuum that later. These should not be expensive. They should be easy to find. He said, I found it in a big box store. I just really like this plant. I'll always have one of these. This is very cool. This, as I said, came from a big box store, and this is Dracaena circulosa. We have Vanilla planifolia. Now, Vanilla planifolia is native to Belize, to northern Brazil, to Colombia, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and the southeast and southwest coasts of Mexico, Nicaragua, and Panama. And this is the vanilla orchid, the variegated one. This is my second try with it. The first time I had it, it did fairly well. And then I thought, I'm going to treat it like a regular orchid. And I put it in a vented pot, a slot pot, with long fiber sphagnum and cocoa husk chunks. And then as I started reading more about it, it seemed to me that it was going to want something more terrestrial. So I think this would be described as hemiepiphytic or like that. What I read, people kept saying, well, it likes to climb up and clamber over things. You need to give it something to climb. It likes a decent amount of light. But I think, because my first one didn't make it, this is number 2. I think it's going to want something more terrestrial. So I'm going to mix up something that's airy, but has, maybe this is a good place for tree fern fiber. I'm going to find out. They can be a little pricey. I mean, they are gorgeous. I mean, that's really, really pretty. And this is pretty much all new growth here. So it's doing okay. But they can be a little pricey. The variegated ones can. The regular ones, the plain green ones, are reasonably priced. So I think I'm going to make up something a little bit, I don't know. This is not the best pot for it either, so we're going to figure something out. But yeah, it's putting out aerial roots. There's some new growth, so I think we're going to be okay. It lives currently about a meter from a west window, so it gets some sun for a very short time period, and then it just gets bright light. It might like a little bit more, but I'm gonna hold off until it's giving me more better results. Yeah, because it will bloom eventually with luck. It might be not in my lifetime, and this is where vanilla comes from. But don't buy it to make your own vanilla, because that could be a long time coming. Buy it because it's really pretty. That's just a neat leaf. And it is an orchid. So I think it's more a terrestrial orchid. I'm going to take that approach. I'm going to do some more research, but yeah, this is really neat. This is Vanilla planifolia, and this one came from Logies. You don't mind that there wasn't much Hoya content this week, but I get asked about other plants so often, I thought I'd do some about that, and old man does not live by Hoyas alone. And question for the comments time. First off, thanks to everyone who took the time to comment on the video last week and to include the name of the genus or genera that they're going to be exploring in the upcoming year. I said earlier that, you think nobody adds to my wish list, but you guys do all the time. Because if you post something and say, oh, well, I'm going to look into this, well, I got to go look it up and see what it's about. And oftentimes it's like, ooh, I might need one of those. And make a note and do some more research. So thank you. I always appreciate that. Question for this week is, what are your weirdos? I sometimes refer to these guys as the weirdos because, the Hoyas are what I do. Hoyas and their relatives are what I do. But I'm finding that the other plants that I have are the ones that are really different, that are really interesting. It's like, oh, I haven't seen that before. Or, I don't have anything like that. I don't have success with a lot of mainstream plants. I can't grow a philodendron, although I'm going to try again. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going to try again. I have no luck with philodendron. Monstera and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but there's only one Monstera that grows for me, and that's Adansonii. So yeah, but the weird ones, these guys, we get perhaps kindred spirits, So in the comments below, include what your weirdo plants are, and we'll see what people are growing. And as always, I want to thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me this week's end. Please remember the thumbs up, like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, and for those of you watching on mobile devices, when you're all done adding your own comments, please click that hype button. It helps promote my channel and convince YouTube that people are watching and are interested. A lot of the products that you've seen me use are available through my Amazon storefront. There's a link in the description, or you can scan this QR code to visit the storefront. I receive a commission on the sales, but it doesn't increase your price at all, and it's a great way of helping support the channel. If you're in the market for grow lights, I have a relationship with Sansi, and if you use this QR code and use my link at checkout, and there's also a link in the description, but use that checkout code and you'll receive 30% off the prices you find on the site. If you'd like to support the channel directly, here's a QR code to my Buy Me a Coffee page. There's also a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page. And if you'd like to work through YouTube, there's a thanks button down here and you can click on that. YouTube handles all the processing for that. I'm going to put links to a couple more videos over here on the side. And thank you, and enjoy the rest of your week's end.